estáis? Ya ha empezado, ¿eh?
I will start. Greetings
Yes.
of the day to all the people from wherever you are, all over the world. A big namaste from India, from the ICBI and the Blind People's Association. I welcome all of you. And since this is session number 1, we hope this turns out to be a wonderful session. We are in times of COVID, so people have been depressed, despondent. We hope this session gives you a chance to find hope in this world and that you find light at the end of the tunnel. So we start with a little poem. In this atmosphere of infection and fear, we're all speaking from far away without coming near. But let this pandemic not increase our anxiety, but help us face the world with courage and gaiety. On this note of optimism, we begin. And I would just like to point out to you, my illustrious panelists, starting with the lady with short hair, that is Sampada Shavde. She is the director of Perkins India. She will be speaking on early communication and its importance in the lives of persons with multiple disability with visual impairment. You know that this first session has to deal with what is MDVI and what are its issues and challenges. Children who are blind with additional handicaps, with additional disabilities, known as VIAD or MDVI. Our second panelist is Vimal Thawani. She is the project director of Blind People's Association. She will be speaking on transition and its importance in the life of children with VIAD, MDVI, and deaf blindness. My third panelist is Mr. Akhil Paul, the director of Sense International India, and he will be speaking on true inclusion of children with deaf blindness and MDVI. And my last speaker is a speaker from Spain. So we have the international part. She is Virginia Cardeso Hilera, who is a director in ONCE, and she will be speaking on how technology can help in the employment of persons and digitalization can help in persons with multi-disability, with visual impairment. As we go ahead, I will be introducing each speaker in greater detail. This was just a highlight of what to expect. Between these 4 people, we have more than 150 years of experience because they have so many years of experience, and that too direct experience of working with kids. So their experience is extremely valuable. We will start with Sampada Shavde, who, as I told you, is the director of Perkins India. But most importantly, her expertise is in the field of multiple disability. She is trained in the field of multiple disability in the Perkins, in the UK, in the USA, and has more than 25 years of experience of working with these kids. I will start with a little poem for Sampada before we begin. Her love for children is legend. Her love for children is legend. Her knowledge of multiple disability has no end. She can communicate without saying anything. She can communicate without saying anything. That is Sampada, whose words will you in your heart a bell ring. So Sampada, welcome. And we would like you to start with talking of early communication and its importance in the lives of persons, children with multiple disability and blindness. And you have 15 minutes starting now.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for the lovely poem and the lovely introduction as well. Hello, everyone, and namaste. I'll be talking about early communication for children with MDVI. It's an honor and a privilege to be a part of this conference, and more importantly, to be a part of this distinguished team. I represent Perkins India, an organization working for children with multiple disabilities and vision impairment, or MDVI, in India. And I'm happy to share my few thoughts and experiences related to early communication for children with MDVI. Before we begin talking about early communication, I just wanted to share a brief description of children with MDVI. Who are these children with MDVI? Essentially, we are talking about children who are blind or have low vision with an additional disability. If you look at the photographs on the slide, the first photograph to the left is of a child who is blind and has a hearing impairment, using his sense of touch to explore a toy. The second photograph is of a child who has low vision and a physical disability, sitting with his parents trying to reach out to a bright colored toy. The third photograph to the right is of a girl who has low vision, cerebral palsy, and an intellectual disability, playing with a toy with her mother in the background. And the last photograph on the slide to the bottom left is of a girl who's learning with her teacher and her grandmother in the background. She has low vision, an intellectual disability, a hearing impairment, and cerebral palsy. All of these are children with MDVI, and these are just a few examples, as each child with MDVI is unique. But if there's one common thread that strings them all together, it is that the biggest challenge they face is in the area of communication, as all of these children require intensive support and intervention for developing communication skills. Since communication is such a big challenge, that's the reason we are talking about developing early communication skills in these children. And as we work on developing skills in the area of early communication, we are essentially interpreting and responding to the child's communication and also supporting the family to do so. Because the family is one of the most important components when it comes to developing early communication for children with MDVI. Once this happens, this leads to bonding or developing a trusting relationship between the child and his teacher, the child and his family, or the child and his caregiver. And this trusting relationship is a strong foundation for communication and learning. Another challenge our children face is understanding and organizing information from the environment and to use this for learning, something we also know as incidental learning, information that other children can easily access because of their senses of vision and hearing. And in early communication, we are also supporting the child to understand and organize all the information that the child receives, to be able to perceive this information, to develop further skills in communication and overall learning and development. This is an example of how we can begin with developing early communication skills in children with MDVI. A lot of our children communicate using their facial expressions, their body movement, and their vocalization or their voice. And this is a great example of a child who is making a choice using her facial expressions and her vocalization. If you watch the video, we have used a small blanket, which is her favorite blanket, to simulate the activity of movement on a swing. The teachers and family members are using the blanket to swing her from side to side. As they do this activity, they stop in between to see if the child indicates in some way that she wants more of this movement. As we wait patiently for her to do something to indicate she wants more, suddenly she smiles and vocalizes. And we take this as an intentional behavior she is using to indicate that she wants more of this movement. We spoke earlier about interpreting and responding to the child's behavior. And this is exactly what the teacher is doing. As soon as the child smiles and vocalizes, she interprets that behavior as a communication that the child is making a choice to indicate she wants more of it. And she responds by immediately continuing the swinging movement for the child. This continues throughout the activity, as eventually the child learns that whenever I have to make a choice and let the teacher know that I want more of this movement, I need to smile and vocalize, and she would understand. And through this, the child is also learning to be more in control of the activity and also a step ahead in understanding the information from the environment and using it to develop communication skills which are being encouraged by the teacher. Sometimes all it takes is good observation and an activity that the child enjoys doing to give the child an opportunity to say what he or she actually wants to say. If we look at early communication and the skills we are encouraging the child to develop through early communication, I think the most important skill is that the child develops trusting relationships with several people, initially within the family, initially with the teacher, and then with several others within the family, and eventually outside the family and within the community. We are encouraging the child to make choices and be in control of his environment. We are encouraging access to information, which helps them understand the information and use it for further learning. As the child has a lot of conversations, he is also naturally learning to take turns. As we even saw in the previous activity, sometimes the child did a movement, a facial expression, and the teacher waited for him. And when the teacher did the movement, the child waited as they patiently learned to take turns during the activity. I was thinking about what is it that we ultimately want for our children with MDVI. I felt we all want children to have a good quality of life. And what does quality of life mean to different children? Quality of life has a lot of factors. But if we think of some of the more basic ones, we want our children to have access to education. We want the family to accept them. We want them to be meaningfully engaged in whatever they do in a meaningful activity. And essentially, early communication helps the child gain all of this directly or indirectly contributing to a good quality of life. Whether it's quality relationships, Dr. Barbara McClatchy, a renowned expert in the field of deafblindness and MDVI, says that good quality relationships are the most important components or areas of a good quality of life for a child with MDVI. We are helping the child to have several positive interactions. access to information, making choices, taking decisions, all of this contributing to a healthy sense of self-esteem, and eventually the ultimate goal of being happy, or a feeling of being happy and in control of the environment, understanding the world around us or around the child. This once again highlights the importance of early communication on the overall development of the child, as it is not just about developing skills in one individual area. And now let us meet Sakshi, a 4 years old, active, and curious child with MDVI. When we first met Sakshi, our family's biggest concern was that though she did interact with a few people using her sense of touch, she didn't like to touch any object at all. Considering Sakshi has a vision impairment, a hearing impairment, and an intellectual disability, touch was a primary sense she would use for communicating and learning. We tried several activities with her so that eventually the teacher could form a trusting relationship with her to initiate communication. In the photograph, you see Sakshi exploring a bowl full of food grains with objects hidden inside along with her teacher. She doesn't seem too happy, but at least she is cooperating with the teacher and trying to find out what is it that she's being encouraged to explore. One day, the teacher tried water play with her and she loved it. And this was a great opportunity for the teacher to initiate communication with her. If you can see in the photographs, Sakshi is happily engaged in the activity of water play along with her teacher, and both of them have a beautiful conversation throughout the activity, a conversation using their hands as they take turns exploring the objects together and then individually, as Sakshi is learning several important communication skills of turn taking and interacting with her teacher to do things together and gain more information about objects and the environment around her. Today, Sakshi participates in a variety of activities which are a part of her daily routine. And here you see Sakshi along with her mother learning another very important skill in early communication, that of anticipation. As the mother guides her hand to teach the food to touch the food, and she waits patiently for Sakshi to explore the food, and then Sakshi takes the food to her mouth. Sakshi is also learning a lot of concepts in the process because, as we say, vocabulary without concepts is meaningless. Today, Sakshi has a lot of positive interactions with several people within her family and with her siblings as well. If we go back to the slide of quality of life, and now if we look at Sakshi, I would very confidently say that Sakshi is well on her way to achieving a good quality of life. She has several quality relationships, positive interactions, a lot of positive feedback from people in her environment. She's having conversations using her sense of touch, making choices about the object she likes, the activities she wants to participate in, and definitely Sakshi and her family are very, very happy today. So, in a sense, once again, I would say, because I think the more I repeat it, it's never enough, that communication is not about developing skills in one individual area, but rather it is about impacting the entire life of the child with MDBI and, in effect, the family of the child. I would end with a quote from Helen Keller which I feel very aptly summarizes all that we've been talking about. Helen Keller says, "Once I knew only darkness and stillness. My life was without past or future, but a little word from the fingers of another fell into my hand that clutched at emptiness, and my heart leaped to the rapture of living." And this, in a sense, is what early communication does for each and every child with MDVI. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sampada. More than anything else, the audience will appreciate what a very excellent communicator you are. How much your love for children is visible, evident from the way you speak and the little examples that you give. Many times people want to do things for children, want to do it for them rather than the children doing things themselves. So communication, you have stressed, I think, very loudly that don't do things for them, don't do things to them, do things with them. Let them explore, let them feel the world around them. And communication is part of the entire gamut of daily living. It is not an activity or a goal in itself. It is one way of improving the quality of your life of any person in this world. That encourages me to say that many times children are there at one side, and they're kept at one side. So a child many times speaks to us in this way, that I'm here too. We forget about them. I'm here too, a child, a human, just like you. Don't look at my disability, look at me. I too want to be independent and free. And for that, communication is a very important tool for freedom, personal independence, happiness, and quality of life. From early childhood and communication, we move to yet another area which is very important, very scary, because many teachers, many parents wonder that this child was with us for 5 years. Now what do we do with this child? He's growing up, she's growing up. What do we do? And who better to tell us than Vimal, who is the project director of one of the largest NGOs in India, the Blind People's Association, who knows children, whether they have a disability or not, is not important. She knows them, loves them, and knows what to do with them, for them, to them, everything. She is trained in multiple disability, she is trained in deaf blindness, and she has more than 38 years of experience. So we will listen to her, but for her, to describe her, I have a little poem. My second speaker is the extremely experienced and elegant Vimal. She is strong, eloquent, but always gentle. Her strength is her knowledge of the grassroots. Her strength is her knowledge of the grassroots. Her efforts and planning will always bring fruit. Welcome, Vimal, to speak on transition, how exciting it is or how scary it is for the next 15 minutes. And thank you for Sampada for saving 1 minute. I would have given you happily 2-3 minutes more. So we go to transition and we hear it from Vimal. Vimal, over to you.
Yeah. Wait. Thank you, Nandini Ben. Namaste. Good afternoon, Madrid. Namaste from India. And thank you, Nandini Ben, for such a wonderful poem for me. I hope I'll reach to your expectation. Today I'll be sharing with you, as Sampada very well explained us, like what a range of children we have with VIMD, including deafblindness. And yes, early communication and activities of daily living, all very, very important. But then let's see, when they grow, how do we manage that, and how they become the responsible adults. I was just wondering, when I was told to, speak on this subject, I thought that the year 2020, from March 2020 till date, what can be the other time to which has helped us to understand these transitions. Now, the children were, we all will agree that we have, all of us, those who are present here and watching this presentation will agree with me that we all have undergone several transitions. Children who were enjoying, every day going to school, and now they are not only, at home, but most of the time they are, spending in front of the screen. People, young adults and all people in a working age group who were going in the offices and enjoying, having working in the office and enjoying the company of other co-workers, are sitting in their drawing rooms and working from home in the mid of their household work with the children, etc., etc. So I think several things have changed, and we have undergone those transitions, and I would say that we have almost been able to cope up. Some of the transitions has definitely given us lots of stress, but we have been able to cope up with many of them, and the life goes on. And the biggest example is that people around the world today have joined through a virtual mode, and that is the biggest transition, though many of us must be upset also that we have not been able to come to Madrid and talk to the people in person. But so what? Still we are connected. So now we move. Let us think. Sampada talked about a child and how early communication is important. All of us, forget about children with VI and MDVI, any child who's born, who's totally dependent for all his needs, grows, from one stage to another, and finally reach to the adulthood and does many of the activities which are expected of him or her, being a contributing member of the family, taking decision that will come in a minute. So in short, the transition is a process from one circumstances to another. It may be physical circumstances, emotional, psychological, and which causes many issues related to our emotions, from moving from one stage to another stage. Saying so, many transitions for us are very so-called normal. We move from one stage to another without, experiencing much of the stress, or even if those situations causes stress, we manage. But in case of children with MDVI, every transition is a challenge. Maybe, when the child first goes from one hand to another hand, because the child feels so secure in the lap of a mother and understand that touch. So from one hand to another is a challenge for the child. Same way, going from a home to the school. Every simple thing is a big challenge, and for that we need to, keep in mind, record it, plan it further. So we'll come back. This is Daya. For my visually impaired friends, there are 4 pictures of one of a girl who is a child with deaf blindness, no more a child now, a young woman with deaf blindness due to rubella. And she came in a first photograph. She could hardly sit. And then you can see a second photograph, which is she has learned to draw, read, and write, and then she is celebrating her birthday, and then she is cooking in her own house. So those are the different stages she has undergone. I'll come back in a while to her. How did we plan for her? How could she is the most empowered woman today. So, but I was just thinking, that an adult, how do we feel that I'm an adult? Because I can take decision for myself. I can take care of myself. I can take care of others also in the family or even wherever I go. I'm capable of doing that I know. And I can work, I can contribute to the family. And I can also choose my leisure time activities that I want to, maybe spend time with my friends, or I want to play, or I want to listen to music. So, and I know that when I become an adult, I have already taken a responsibility. I am able to contribute in terms of, economic contribution, supporting a family by, doing household work, helping them. And I take my own decisions whether I want to, work here, or I want to shift, or I'm bored, I want to do something else. So accordingly, I make my choice. So is true for young adults with MDVI. But when they become adults, they do need support. They can do whatever a young adult is expected to do, and they do. So young adult with MDVI is also able to choose their leisure time activities. They may need some support to give them some choices. They also they can take decisions, and they do it, provided we give them opportunities and we, create where they are able to do that. They do take care of themselves also. They learn to do, as Sampada very well explained, that they learn to communicate, and that is across all the developmental areas of the child. And so they are able to take care of themselves. And yes, at home, I remember a child whose mom was ill, and a child with MDVI could feel that, and he went and just put a hand on her head and just expressed that, yes, I'm there for you. So they do take care of others also, and in a process they learn to contribute also. The only thing we need to remember is that they may need some support. So we don't have to do it for them, but we may extend support, because ultimately our goal for them is to make them independent. We do, when we talk of transition, what do we have in mind that requires the attention is that we do, plan for transition, helping them for in case of transitions from one activity to another, because for any child that is very not natural, normal, but for children with MDVI, they require certain level of planning, but they do it, they learn it. They learn to anticipate, and then they go from one activity to another activity without any stress. Then because suppose from a reception to a primary school, to a special school or a regular school, to a vocational center, to, community life, and then the work life. So each stage requires a planning. We'll come in a minute. How do we go about it? In the process, many times, and very well, Nandini when said that we do get excited, and the young adults, I mean, in a process of growing, they also are excited. But, as teachers, as parents, we have many concerns for them, and we have preconceived ideas also. And we have lots of fears also. When a girl starts growing, the mother is worried about, her menstruation cycle, her safety, and many other things. So those fears are very, very genuine. But, ultimately, we have to help them to, grow as an independent individual. Many times we feel sad also, because talking to parents, oh my God, this child was so a very little one, and then we were happy doing many activities with them. But as the child starts growing and reaches to the adolescent age, many of the parents, they do feel sad also about it. And as they grow, their anxieties and their fears becomes more and more intense, and becomes many times a cause of worry also. But we have to keep a balance, that we have to keep them safe also, as well as make them independent also. So in short, it is a process of making, their transition stress-free, and helping them to, adapt to the new level of their life. Now, many times we feel that, okay, right now the children are very small. It requires, there's lots of time. We'll plan when the child reaches to the age of 14 or 15 or 18, and when the child is expected to, or the person is expected to go to a workplace. I would like to emphasize here that we don't have to wait for so many years. The transition planning has to start from very beginning. Like for any child, the child himself dreams about himself or herself. So it's true for them also. We have to start from a very early years. We have to learn to help them to take responsibility and give responsibility to them. Their opinion matters, and we have to take into consideration when we plan the opinion of all the people who are concerned with them, the parents or people in the community, people in the school, teachers, or whosoever is concerned with the child. We have to keep in mind that accordingly, we have to help the child to learn different skills and make him confident young adult. This is one of the how part. As I said, that we have to plan for them. So how do we plan? So personal future planning is one of the tools which personally I love it, and it's very useful in helping them to go from one stage to another. We have to, as I say, that we have to make this personal future planning is based on the preparing different maps, and the very important is that we have to sit with the child, sit with the parents, and make them dream. Mostly what happens when the child is with multiple disabilities, including deaf blindness, we think, oh, they cannot do anything, or how can we dream about them? So please sit with them. They also have dreams. Their parents have also dreams. So sit with them and dream with them. Identify their strengths and limitations, what the child is able to do. We need to focus on that. I'll come back to that. And what are the opportunities available in the immediate environment for these child to explore? identify the places where the child goes and is expected to go, because today he may not be or she is not going to accept school or maybe one of the relative, but tomorrow we may expect her to go to different places. So that also has to be mapped out. What we have to focus is that we need to have a very clear vision about the person, and their hopes and dreams has to be in the center of our planning. We have to identify what the child is good at and how all these things will fit him for her adult life. This is Daya, where I showed you in the beginning the 4 pictures. Quickly we'll go through it, her journey. Today she's 21 years old, earning around 3,000 Indian rupees and very confident girl. Let's see how she began her journey. This was her dream map, which was prepared when she joined us in the year 2001. And she and her parents wanted her to get some education, independent in her activities of daily living, to have friends also, and to be responsible to do her own work and to earn money for herself. So that was this thing. So the first transition was from her transition from home to school. That was planned, that how she will come and all. I'll not go into those details. And she has learned, you can see that she has learned to draw. She has learned to read and write. Then as she grew, the teachers and the parents identified that she had lots of strengths and she can go to the regular school and learn the mainstream curriculum. So she was, from that daycare, she was enrolled in a school for the blind where she learned the mainstream curriculum. As she grew, the next stage was that she was able to go to the school, to a community life, wherein she made number of people, visited number of places, made number of friends. So, and then she joined a vocational training center and learned skills as per her strengths. This was very interesting part, wherein as an adolescent girl, which was very stressful to her and more than her to her mother, because when she started menstruating, that was a day where her mother, including her father, they were really terrified that what will happen now. But she could manage, she learned to do that, and she could manage very well. And you can see in these pictures that she is dressed for a festival, applying a lipstick, and she's enjoying so much and having friends around her. And she participated in cultural event where she performed, and today she learned cooking. So she is helping mother in the kitchen and working as a very, very responsible woman at a home. She's, packing tiffin for her father. So that was her journey. And it is for us, more than, she is very happy, very confident. So I would conclude with this, that it is not a one-day process. It's really a journey for a person with MDVI, or for anybody for that matter. Then everybody needs to be involved. If one strategy doesn't work, don't give up. But you try and try again, definitely they learn. And I'll come to this again, because when I was undergoing my training, Dr. Barbara McClatchy, who is again a very, very, as Sampada very rightly said, a very renowned expert in the field of deafblindness, she says that you don't plan in pieces, you plan for the whole future, where you include how they to live, to love, to work, and to play. thank you very much for giving me this opportunity and have a wonderful time. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Vimal. That was great. I would request you to stop sharing. Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much. You have not only explained what is transition, but you have said the why, the what, the how it can be, not a very smooth process. It requires a lot of adjustment, a lot of understanding, a lot of trial and error. It is not something that you can do in one step and, hey, you open a bottle of Coke and you drink it. It's not as simple as that. You have to try and try again and involve the family, involve the community, and most important of all, ask, what is it that you want to be? What is your dream? Don't assume for the child. So thank you very much, Vimal, for that very practical and the way you showed Daya and her entire journey. Thank you very much. And we now come to what should be done and with people. How does society react, and what is it that we as a group should do to ensure the inclusion of children, persons with the MDVI, deaf blindness, to be involved truly in society, to be included truly in society, not as a lip service, not as a piecemeal effort. And who better than Akhil, Paul, who single-handedly, I would say, has highlighted the needs of people with deaf blindness in the Indian subcontinent, I would say. Before Science International came and before Akhil came into the field, there was only one program for deaf blindness in the entire India. And today, more than 100,000 children are being covered through more than 250 programs, which is a very big thing. So one person can make all the difference in this world. You are the change that you want to be in the world, as Mahatma Gandhi has said. And Akhil very, very beautifully and tangibly embodies these elements. And before you start, Akhil, and tell us what you want to do for the inclusion of persons with deaf blindness, a little poem for you. After all the beautiful women, my next speaker is a man, a good human being, serving society as part of God's plan, an advocate, an expert who in MDVI stands tall. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you the most adorable Akhil Paul. So Akhil, all yours, and you can start.
Thank you very much, ma'am. And I must say, first of all, a big thanks to the summit for allowing us to present our thoughts, and to Nandini for picking me as part of her panel. And a huge thanks to Sampada and Vimal, because they have explained what deaf blindness is, and that makes my life much easier, because you will be able to connect automatically when I say certain things, because you know what deaf blindness or multidisability is. I also want to recognize and salute some of my gurus in the sector. Debbie is there, Debbie Gleason from Perkins. She is my teacher from Perkins School, the alma mater for me, which taught me what deaf blindness is. And also Dr. Punani, Madhav Arielji, and we have my colleagues from Sense India, from Perkins, from Blind People Association, and ICVI as well. So I also wish to express my greetings, because we are still celebrating the Helen Keller week. So a very happy Helen Keller week to all of you. With your permission, Madam Chair, I am sharing my screen.
Yes, go ahead.
And today I'm going to go in reverse gear, because what I feel, when you want to understand inclusion, I think we need to go on the reverse gear to understand some other things as well. For example, to understand light, we have to know what darkness is. And to know what day is, we have to know the night. So that's the concept I'm taking today, trying to approach this subject of inclusion in a little different manner. Exclusion and integration and inclusion. So we have looked into all these three concepts over the past, I would say 30, 40 years. And for the friends who can't see the screen, I'm going to explain. There's a drawing on the screen, and there are two sets of children. There are about 4 children on one side of the screen, and on the other side of the screen, there are only 2 boys. So the group of children, they are saying, one of them is saying, I don't want to be with them, pointing at the 2 boys. And the other one is saying, look, they're so different.
Hi, Sean. I just
And-
clicked on the same one as you because I just clicked on the one you had because I.
Sorry?
I think that was by mistake somewhere. Akhil, go ahead.
All right. So, and the two boys, you see, one of them is visually impaired with a stick, and the other one also has some disability. That's why they are on one side. So this is a traditional exclusion picture. Then comes that they are still in the same playground, same environment. One of them in the group is saying, let's talk with them. And the other one is saying, but what can we talk about with them? They are so different. So again, they're not extremely apart. They're not completely, 2 poles, but they're in the same environment, still not together. They are close by, probably, surviving in the same environment, but there's not much interaction happening. Now in the third diagram, you see all of them together. And one girl is saying, look, new children in the park. And then other one says, let's play with them. This is very simplistic manner we can look at from exclusion, integration to inclusion. But when we look at real life situation, so social exclusion is described as a state in which individuals are unable to participate fully in economic, social, political, and cultural life. Not only participate in these conditions, as well as in the process leading to inclusion. They can't participate in those processes as well. And sustaining such a state is also a problem. So they cannot continue to participate in economic activities, social activities, political and cultural life. So this is, a condition which we find deaf-blind children, young adults, sometimes parents also in the same kind of environment. And social exclusion is actually a multi-dimensional phenomenon. It's not limited to material deprivation. Many a times we talk about poverty as, exclusion. But poverty is just one of the important dimension of exclusion. It's not the only dimension. And social inclusion processes involve more than improving access to economic resources. You might have seen people who are not poor, but yet excluded from our society and community. So, this is a very interesting phenomena that we need to understand. So measuring social exclusion is challenging. Why? Because it is multidimensional in nature and there is lack of standard data sources. We cannot fit a format and say that 5 ticks in 5 areas means inclusion, 3 ticks mean exclusion. No, because it doesn't work in that manner. When we go a little forward, I'll try and explain what I mean to say that it is multidimensional. And poverty is commonly defined in monetary terms. Always how much we are earning, how much is the earning capacity. But social exclusion takes a more holistic view of human development. So in India, when we were writing our Rights for Persons with Disability Act, and we started using a term called high need, with people with higher needs in terms of their approach, in terms of their need for education, need for support in other areas, more than one areas, education, health, economic, and other things. So people with high support needs is something which talks about a holistic view. It doesn't talk only about monetary deprivation. So going forward, there are 4 forms of exclusion that today deafblind people, people with multiple disabilities are facing. So what are those 4 forms of exclusion? Political exclusion, economic exclusion, social exclusion, and cultural exclusion. Denial of rights and freedom of expression and equality of opportunity to our deafblind clients, deafblind young adults, is actually political exclusion of them. Lack of access to labor market, credits, and other capital assets is economic exclusion. See, all our countries have developed certain policies and rules to provide for these rights. But how far deafblind people are actually accessing those rights? That's where the question needs to be asked. That's where the real exclusion is happening. Because still we are not understanding the characteristic of a deafblind young adult, deafblind person, and deafblind child. We are looking at deafblindness from the single disability lens. And that's where the problem comes. I'll come to that in my next few slides. Social exclusion, when we reduce opportunity and access due to gender, ethnicity, age, and disability, we lead to social exclusion. And then diverse values, norms, and ways of living are not accepted or respected. That leads to cultural exclusion. So when I look at a deafblind child and the family of that child in a typical situation, I see all 4 of these happening in one child's life. That's where I need to talk about inclusion. That's where I need to break this cycle of exclusion. Only one exclusion, if we look at only political exclusion and say that we give them rights to vote and they can talk about themselves, is not going to solve the problem. We need to look at all 4 corners of this exclusion, which are leading to a much more deeper exclusion. So what are the areas, what are the things, what are the drivers which lead for these social exclusion? There are some structural and socio-economical drivers. And quickly we need to go into that so that you will connect with my previous slides. So the drivers like low income. So low income, it is associated with unemployment. And it impacts on opportunities in other areas, because you can't pay for the health, pay for transport, pay for education. So many different things you cannot access because you have low income. And people with deafblindness are among the most low paid today in the job market, particularly in this part of the world. This is one area, one driver showing you how it is going to impact on exclusion of deafblind adults. Unemployment. Disability and perceptions of ability reduces employment opportunities for persons with deafblindness. People don't want to give them the opportunity that they can perform at par with others, because they perceive having dual sensory impairment and some other conditions actually will not allow deafblind people with multiple disabilities to perform at a level like others. That's the perception. Problem is perception in our minds. Unemployment reduces social networks because we don't communicate. Because they're not earning, they can't move out, meet people, entertain others. So it reduces social networks and social connection, and also income, and it is associated with ill health, low education attainment. This is a vicious circle we have always talked about. Education is an enabler. We all believe that. But when it comes to a child with deafblindness, it is the exclusion is affected by child with deafblindness and their family characteristics, where they live, what is their status, in some areas, what is their caste, and the location of their homes. Then comes the school factors, how good the school is in terms of accepting children with deafblindness into the school, how good is the system in the school which provides peer support, gives accommodation in terms of their accessibility needs, curricular needs, and the relationship between parents and school and locality. These are also very important factors. If the parents do not have a lot of say, then their children will not get what their entitlement is. Most of the children with deafblindness are pushed into homebound situation, homebound education. Remember, it's not home-based. We are making them remain confined to their homes because we don't want them in school. And what home-based school is? Preparing a child in home so that they can transition into the school. They're two different things. So we need to understand that schools have a major role to play in ruling out any kind of exclusion from the very beginning. Transport is another area. Transport, limited transport options, because if the buses are not accessible, the road is not there, there are not enough public transport available, what will happen? It will restrict access to work, education, socio-cultural activities, all that will be limited, restricted. So transport is also a driver towards exclusion or inclusion. Housing, because of unemployment, low income, persons with deafblindness lead in poor living conditions. That's, you will see it when you travel across many countries, particularly in developing countries, you will see this. And poor housing, homelessness contributes to poor health and well-being. Again, this is the vicious proven circle that we have seen in today's world. Then there is physical and mental health. It impacts upon employment, holding job. If we are not mentally sound, physically sound, we cannot hold on to our job or our employment for a longer time. And housing, getting good housing, income, access to services, our social networks, because our connect is based on communication, a relationship. So poor mental health leads to social exclusion. Discrimination, so reinforces disadvantage and affects people with deafblindness, their self-perception of themselves, their self-confidence, their self-esteem is really, banged upon when there is discrimination. Whatever they have learned in their school, in their programs, when these children become young adults, and when they go into the open market, into the community, and they face discrimination, it is their self-esteem which gets beating. Locality, where they come from. If you have less income, if you don't have a good housing, if you have other problems in terms of low connectivity with other people in society, you will be living in an area which is not well connected in all forms. You might be living in a ghetto, on an area which is not accessible by school, housing, transport, electricity, drinking water, all these things. So there's crime, fear of crime, local economies, and lack of social networks. All this lead to sense of fragility and isolation in people. And this is something which has been proven by the research. I'll at the end of my presentation, I'll show you some references there, which has led to this observation. So there are some domain impact as well. We have classical domains of society, community, relationships, and individuals. And when you look at the domains, in each domain, there are certain components, and how those components actually connect with other domains, that is very interesting to look at. See, in society, in societal domain, what happens? There are mental models which are already prepared. People are following certain models that persons with multiple disability, visual impairment, deaf, blindness, oh, they are always dependent. You need to have someone all the time with them. They can't communicate. They can't hold on to any job. They're so demanding. All these are our mental models which foster exclusion. Then there is perception of otherness, us and them. Then there is devaluation of roles. When they are in any kind of responsibility, our roles are not valued. The media, how it portrays people with multiple disability is also very important. If the media is positive, they will talk about positive things. They will not talk about the limitations. And then the society, what policy and legislation we make. If it is a liberating legislation and policy, if it is a policy which is all inclusive, definitely we will open doors for inclusion. Then comes the community as a domain. Understanding the disability, understanding the demands of dual sensory impairment, how understanding the community is about these demands. Then there is, you see, discrimination and bullying of people with deaf blindness. Accessibility, a major issue in the community, because we create our world which is good for sighted, hearing, walking, talking people. We don't create a society, a world which looks into the needs of people who have limitation of vision, hearing, sight, walking. The ICT, the information communication technology support, again, it is touch-based. Now during this pandemic, everything went online. All education went online. But who is not online even today?
Akhil?
Those deaf-blind children and young adults. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that is another problem area, that our ICT is touch-based. And touch is a problem for a deaf-blind child. So perception of productivity, how productive a deaf-blind person can be, and the unfriendly community as well. Relationship, in a relationship, expectations of capability of a deaf-blind person is a problem. Overprotection, not allowing to participate, not allowing to do what they want, decision-making is not there. Bullying, family resources are limited, and the priority is always other family members, not a deaf-blind person. And in individual, because of all the lack of income, lack of attention, there is problem of individual health functioning, because they are not healthy, they can't function very much. There's lack of self-confidence. The social skills get hampered because there is no one talking to them. And access to support network is limited. Opportunities are not given. So these are all, the components which lead us to exclusion. And if we need to talk about inclusion, we need to counter all these components. We need to look at each of these components and say, hey, are we discriminating? Are we not providing the ICT support to our deaf-blind, multi-decibel children? So this is how we need to lead to a true inclusion. So outcome of all this is that you find today people with deaf blindness, with poorer health and well-being, they are lower education attainment in them, less social and community participation, you see, less economic participation, there's higher rates of poverty and increased dependency. And we say for all this, people with deaf blindness are responsible. But if you remember all the past slides, you'll see it's the community which is responsible in making deafblind people like this. We are not giving them the space they need, the entitlements they have. So true inclusion is a process of improving the terms of participation in society for people who are disadvantaged, particularly for people with deafblindness. And, when I say participation at all levels, in terms of opportunities, access to resources, voice, and respect for rights. And promoting inclusion requires tackling social
will you
exclusion.
be concluding, Akhil, now?
Yes,
We have one more speaker.
30 seconds. And removing barriers to people's participation in society, as well as taking active steps to include them. This last slide, fostering social inclusion may not increase or may increase. It's not, because it is the community which is important, and capacity of people to live together in harmony. That is what is very important. Social inclusion is not the same as social integration, but both of these actually contribute in making societies more cohesive. We need to look at the utility of our social exclusion framework. What framework we are using to measure exclusion. We need to have a look at that again. And people with deafblindness do not complete basic education and lack social protection. That is where we need to ensure that there is education available for them and there is social protection available for people with deafblindness. And people are often excluded due to a disability. They're not excluded because of only economical disadvantage, but also because of disability. And the more disabled they are considered, the more excluded they are. So with these words, I just say, if you are looking at inclusion, we need to look at human rights. We need to look at people integration. We need to look at respecting diversity, respecting minority, and also understanding the community and the sense of belongingness. Thank you very much. I'm sorry I've taken a few minutes extra. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Akhil. Thank you very much. Actually, the core matter of your presentation is a very, very serious topic, which all of us tend to overlook because we are so busy giving services to people and, making a list of the number of people served. We do not many times see what society is actually meting out to these individuals, or the problems that are there in society throughout the centuries. We tend to gloss over all this and we do not look at the uglier aspects of society. And thank you for highlighting these aspects, which as a society we need to change. As a rights activist, as a person who understands human rights, thank you for bringing this to our notice. And there are some questions which we shall take at the end, but we have our last speaker, who is from our host organization. First of all, we thank ONCE and the people of Spain for hosting this incredible webinar and allowing all of us to come together. And my last speaker is Virginia Carcedo Hilera, who is will be talking about digital transformation and employment of persons with deafblindness. She is a General Secretary of Inserta Empleo and is the Deputy Director Training and Employment of ONCE. And she is an MBA. She has an MBA with NGOs. She has experience in law. She has experience in strategic planning and employment. And I welcome her to speak. She will be speaking in Spanish, so we will look on for the translations. But I have a poem for you, Virginia, before you start. That I now have a speaker who is a consumer, because she has experienced visual impairment. I now have a speaker who is a consumer, who has faced challenges and has emerged a winner. Her understanding is based on her working years. She has emerged victorious and without fears. So I invite Virginia to speak, and I welcome you. And once again, thank you, ONCE, and I thank you for joining us. And the floor is yours. And at the last, we'll have 5 minutes for questions, because there are only 2 questions up to now. So please go ahead. We have 15 minutes more. Yeah, please go ahead.
Thank you. Aunque voy a hablar en castellano, en español, I would like to send my best wishes to all of the audience, because it's my pleasure to be here with you, speaking in these important events. ¿Podéis compartir la presentación, por favor? I have a very small presentation. I don't know if it's possible to share the screen. ¿Podéis compartirla? Bueno, en todo caso...
It's coming on. It's not yet on, Virginia. Your presentation is not yet on.
It's not yet on? Okay.
Yeah, you can share it, no problem.
Yeah, I am going to start because we have, tenemos poco tiempo, entonces, bueno.
We have time, you don't worry. Yeah.
Ok. Bueno, la primera cuestión que me gustaría resaltar es que es muy importante las presentaciones que me han precedido, porque yo voy a hablar sobre el empleo y la formación de las personas con múltiples discapacidades, sus aspectos tecnológicos y también un aspecto, un punto relacionado con las personas con sordoceguera, ¿no? A pesar de que mi compañero precedente ya lo ha explicado brillantemente, ¿no? Pero sí que es muy importante el viaje que hemos hecho, ¿no? Si recordamos, hemos empezado con los niños, después hemos empezado en las transiciones hacia la educación, la edad, los jóvenes de determinada edad, y después hemos seguido con qué es la inclusión, qué es la exclusión y todos estos aspectos, ¿no?, que inciden en que una persona con múltiple discapacidad tenga o no una participación activa en la sociedad. Y mi presentación o mi exposición, si la presentación después no se ve ahora, la podemos compartir, está relacionada con el empleo y la formación de las personas con múltiples discapacidades o sordoceguera también como una de estas múltiples discapacidades. Primero me gustaría tres fechas, ¿no?, que me gustaría resaltar. En 1938. 11 fue fundada en 1938 por personas ciegas que empezaron a trabajar y que empezaron a tomar un papel activo, ¿no? Y en esas personas ciegas que estaban en una guerra civil, había muchas que tenían múltiples discapacidades. Yo llegué a conocer personas mayores que además de perder la visión habían perdido un brazo, por ejemplo, ¿no? En 1988 se creó la Fundación 11, que era la solidaridad de las personas ciegas con el resto de personas con discapacidad. Y se articuló en torno a dos programas, ¿no?, a dos pilares. Uno, el empleo y la formación, y otro, la accesibilidad global y universal a los servicios, a los productos. Todo debe ser globalmente accesible, porque el empleo y la formación sin la accesibilidad pues no es factible, y la accesibilidad es un medio para llegar a un fin. Y además que por ejemplo, una calle es accesible, lo será para una persona con discapacidad o lo será para una persona mayor. Y en 1998 se fundó Inserta Empleo, que es la entidad de la que yo soy responsable más específicamente, que está relacionada con la atención directa a las personas con discapacidad, pero en lo que se refiere al empleo y la formación. Todos los derechos, todas las cuestiones que aquí el doctor aquí nos ha explicado antes, en muchas ocasiones su puerta de entrada es el empleo, y para que las personas con discapacidad, con múltiples discapacidades, puedan entrar a una salud, a una autonomía personal, a una independencia, es muy relevante encontrar un empleo. Sin ese empleo no tienen autonomía, sin ese empleo no se les ve como personas que producen, son personas, como se suele decir, que están en el baile de la inclusión, pero que no entran a bailar. Y esta es la clave, es lo que hacemos en Inserta Empleo, que es la entidad experta de Fundación 11 en el empleo y la formación de personas con discapacidad. En Inserta Empleo somos casi 500 personas, estamos en toda España, pero muchas de estas personas son personas con discapacidad, más del 85%, y más del 80% son mujeres. Me gustaría resaltar que todo lo que hemos dicho de las personas con múltiples discapacidades se refuerza, para mal, con mujeres. Es decir, si tú tienes una múltiple discapacidad y además eres mujer, estás múltiplemente discriminada, con lo cual, si en Inserta Empleo somos personas con discapacidad y en muchas ocasiones mujeres, pues se cumple en nosotros lo que se ha dicho en la inauguración: nada para nosotros sin nosotros. Y sobre todo también lo que se aplica en el artículo 27 de la Convención de las Naciones Unidas, ¿no?, que es el derecho al trabajo y a la autodeterminación en este trabajo. Me gustaría compartir la experiencia que en Inserta Empleo hemos tenido, cómo trabajar y cómo transformar ese posible estigma que se ha mencionado para trabajar con las personas con múltiples discapacidades, ¿no? Todos sabemos lo que es una multidiscapacidad, que son que cuando todas las áreas del desarrollo se encuentran afectadas y el grado de severidad es variable en función de los estímulos y apoyos que recibe la persona. Por tanto, es necesario tener en cuenta que no solamente importa el desarrollo de la persona, sino las posibilidades, las funciones, la comunicación, el entorno y sobre todo esto hace que si ya es difícil convencer a una empresa, a un empleador, para que contrate a una persona, digamos, con una única discapacidad, lo es mucho más si cabe para una persona que tiene múltiple discapacidad, como puede ser una persona sordociega, en este caso con sordoceguera. Es muy relevante tener una metodología de acompañamiento a la propia persona y al empleador que quiten el estigma, que no se focalicen en la discapacidad y sí en la capacidad, en lo que la persona puede hacer. Y para estas herramientas y para poder hacer esta valoración positiva, desde Inserta Empleo, desde Fundación 11 y la 11, utilizamos dos herramientas, podemos decir híbridas. Antes hablaba Nandini de la tecnología. Ambas incorporan la tecnología, pero también incorporan el elemento humano, que es clave, ¿no? Nosotros hablamos de soulware, soul, alma, software, el software, en lugar de software solo. Es importante la tecnología, pero esta tecnología sin personas no, está vacía, ¿no? Las personas deben ser el centro de todo. Bueno, las herramientas a las que nosotros hacemos alusión y que utilizamos son la valoración de las capacidades en base a la clasificación internacional del funcionamiento de la discapacidad y la salud, de la OMS. Todos mis compañeros de mesa seguro que la conocen. Y otra herramienta que nosotros utilizamos es la evaluación de las competencias básicas más demandadas en el mercado laboral. No olvidemos, muchas veces nos ocurre, estamos muy focalizados en que las personas con discapacidad, con múltiples discapacidades, encuentren trabajo. Pero también es muy importante dónde encuentran ese trabajo. Y aquí es muy relevante el enfoque de lo que la persona sí puede hacer. Esta metodología de la OMS es muy relevante porque sirve de una manera muy individualizada para analizar las capacidades de la persona. Es decir, pone el foco en lo que la persona sí puede hacer. Por lo tanto, en este caso, la múltiple discapacidad multiplica talento. No resta discapacidad, sino que multiplica talento porque realmente podemos evaluar aspectos como son pues una estructura corporal, la capacidad, la deambulación, la destreza manual, el acceso al transporte, la posición, la expresión oral, el aprendizaje. Estos factores deben cruzarse también con los puestos de trabajo que las empresas ofertan, porque si no los incluimos, si no hacemos este cruce, nos quedaremos en una de las partes del viaje del empleo, ¿no? Con lo cual, la clasificación de la CIF que nosotros utilizamos está muy focalizada en la persona individual, en su orientación, en su evaluación y en su mapa de talento, en lo que la persona es buena y en lo que la persona tiene que mejorar. No se trata de mejorar aquello en lo que no somos del todo buenos, no somos del todo más eficientes, sino de potenciar aquello en que sí lo somos y reducir los gaps en lo que no lo somos tanto. Y de esa manera, focalizándonos en la persona, personas con discapacidades similares tendrán un perfil competencial muy diferente. Respecto de la siguiente herramienta que comentaba, que es la evaluación de competencias, hemos generado 3 tipos de cuestionarios. Aquí otra vez volvemos a la personalización. Hemos generado 3 tipos de cuestionarios en los que, como podréis ver, pues se incluye también la múltiple discapacidad. El primer cuestionario es el que nosotros llamamos 16. Consta de 174 ítems y está enfocado principalmente a la evaluación de las competencias de personas con puestos técnicos, universitarios, una formación superior. El cuestionario 11 está formado por 124 elementos y se se destina preferentemente a la evaluación de las competencias requeridas en puestos administrativos, digamos de un perfil más bajo. Y el que nosotros llamamos 7 consta de tan solo 32, que son muy importantes, y lo que busca es pues, ayudar en el perfil competencial de las personas con algún grado de discapacidad intelectual o limitaciones de comprensión lectora. Con lo cual, como veis, con estas 2 herramientas lo que hacemos por una parte es analizar la capacidad y por otra parte analizar las competencias. En este cuestionario que os comento, en estos 3 cuestionarios que os comento, tenemos lo que se llama la escala para el control de la sinceridad, para que la persona que se está evaluando pues, podamos ver si dice la verdad o hay alguna cuestión que debemos tener en cuenta, ¿no? Y además es muy importante su fiabilidad, su valor es del 0,83. Es uno de los más importantes a nivel español, no solo para personas con discapacidad, sino para personas sin discapacidad, porque lo que es bueno para las personas con discapacidad también lo es para las personas sin discapacidad. La clave es la personalización y la sensibilización. Un aspecto importante y como elementos de vida, me gustaría resaltar 2. Una es una persona de la propia Inserta, que trabaja con nosotros, se llama María Marín, es una persona con resto visual y que recientemente ha sido diagnosticada con los primeros síntomas de esclerosis múltiple. Trabaja con nosotros en Inserta y estas 2 herramientas nos van a permitir en su día a día medir cómo es el desarrollo de su enfermedad, de su esclerosis múltiple, ver qué va necesitando en cada momento y permitir que esta persona no pierda su trabajo, no se quede en su casa y por lo tanto siga dentro del itinerario formativo. Quizá tenga que reorientarse, quizá no, pero como lo que se trata es de ajustar y de personalizar, iremos viendo en cada momento lo que ella vaya necesitando. María nos manifiesta la importancia de este empleo que le permite obtener su independencia y sobre todo abordar con su pareja un proyecto de vida. Otro importante elemento es una persona sordociega, se llama Sandra Timón, pero no la traigo por ella, que tiene muchos méritos, sino que la traigo porque está trabajando en una empresa de reconocido prestigio que es Microsoft. Cuando las empresas deciden, o al menos la legislación se ha comentado antes, les dice que tienen que contratar, es muy importante la clave y la fase de orientación. La labor de sensibilización, los compañeros que van a trabajar con esa persona, ¿no? Tienen que estar sensibilizados, tienen que ver que no es un riesgo trabajar con esta persona, sino que es una oportunidad. Y Microsoft ha contratado a Sandra, ha habido sesiones de sensibilización, pero lo que empezó siendo un proyecto piloto se ha convertido para estas empresas en elementos de competitividad. Los equipos diversos son equipos rentables y esto para todas las empresas del grupo, del mundo. Cuando trabajamos con personas de distintos perfiles, somos capaces de pensar fuera de la caja, think out of the box. Somos capaces de generar productos más competitivos y sobre todo somos capaces de cambiar el mundo, porque todas estas personas tienen familias y la labor de las familias, como se ha comentado, es muy relevante. Es importante la labor que desde la ONCE y desde la Fundación ONCE para la ayuda a la sordoceguera se hace en España. En España es verdad que se viene trabajando desde 2007 en la fundación que se creó entonces y también hay una unidad de atención a sordoceguera dependiente de la ONCE con 2 figuras muy relevantes. Por una parte el mediador y por otra parte el guía intérprete. La Fundación ONCE de Apoyo a la Sordoceguera en 2019 dio más de 85.000 horas de mediación y tiene más de 100 profesionales atendiendo a 500 personas. Es clave los ajustes razonables. Se decía esta mañana, la financiación, el apoyo económico es trascendental. En Inserta nosotros tenemos a más de 4.400 personas cuya discapacidad afecta a las funciones de vista y oído, de los cuales 391 están afiliados a ONCE y 57 son sordociegos. La propia ONCE ha puesto en marcha ahora un plan de apoyo a personas sordociegas para activarlas desde el punto de vista del empleo. Es muy relevante como conclusión, si después tenemos tiempo y porque Nandini me lo pidió, dar dos pequeñas conclusiones. La primera, el empleo y la formación son elementos trascendentales para la activación de las personas con múltiples discapacidades. El elemento talento, el elemento positivo, la capacidad, un correcto análisis multiplica capacidades y no genera más discapacidad. La mujer como elemento y como colectivo dentro de este colectivo que sufre mayor exclusión. Y sobre todo la sensibilización. Las empresas, los empleadores tienen también que ver que las personas con múltiples discapacidades son una oportunidad. Y yo creo que aquí los ejemplos que estamos dando todos son ejemplos que muy bien podrían servir para abrir muchísimas puertas y que nunca más se vuelvan a cerrar. Thank you all of you. I'm happy to be here. Again, I think it's very important, this event. And if you have any further question, feel free to contact us.
Gracias. That was wonderful, Virginia. Eres la mejor and maravillosa.
Thank you.
I hope my Spanish was okay, huh?
It's okay.
Thank you so much for highlighting the two stories of Sandra and Marina and how they have done well for themselves and how ONCE as an organization believes in the abilities of people with MDVI and the role that technology can play in the inclusion of people with MDVI blindness. There have been a few questions from the audience, which I have been noting down because I thought if we don't have time and we are told to cut off, I have given them your emails, which I hope you don't mind, panelists, so that, you know, people can contact you. But I would just like to summarize the 5 questions which have come up. One, is there a curriculum for the training of these children? Number 2, where should children with MDVI, deaf blindness be educated, in a special school or in a regular school? What are the roles of national governments in the inclusion of people with deaf blindness and MDVI? How do we encourage the participation of parents? And when should transition be done? How early? If we are allowed 5 minutes more by the organizers, I think all 3 of you can, amongst yourselves, answer these questions. Role of national governments, if Akhil can tell us in very brief. And if Vimal can tell us when transition should be done, how early. And if Sampada can come up with curriculum and parents together, we have about 5 minutes only. After which, because the next session will be in. So I don't think we can take more than 5 minutes, or you can reply. I have given your emails. We start with Akhil, quickly.
As far as the government are concerned, I think the biggest responsibility the governments can play is providing the curriculum adaptation, opening up the policy planning process involving people from the grassroots, and also making sure that there is no discrimination between mainstream education and so-called inclusion. Because what we have seen over the years is mainly 2 things. The education is happening. The children are reaching to regular schools, government schools, but the teachers are not prepared how to teach the national curriculum to children with multiple disabilities and deaf blindness. So that's the need. The government need to open and also provide for a teacher assistant in the class.
Sorry, Akhil, I have received a message from the organizers that we have to finish. I will only conclude by saying that somebody from the executive director of the Malawi Union of the Blind wants to get in touch with Virginia. Virginia, please give them your email, okay? He is the president of the African Federation of the Deaf Blind. So please give them your email. And I want to thank all the panelists for the wonderful job that they've done, excuse me. and the audience for being a wonderful audience. We have managed to get together the perspectives right from on the life cycle approach, right from early communication, early childhood to inclusion in life, including technology, including transition. So I once again thank the panelists, and I thank the ICBI, the World Blind Union, for bringing this blindness summit together. And I thank my panelists because it was left to me to decide my panelists and give them the subjects. So thank you for giving me this, and thank you once again.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank
And,
you, Nandini.
As
Thank
I
you,
said,
the
please
rest.
give the gentleman your email ID. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
I'm going to
Yeah.
send you. Bye-bye.